Dallas is down 1-0, and we are ready to play ball here tonight. He leaves it for Porzingis. Fires a three, rattles one home. Oh, Porzingis! Doncic, another easy rim run. Boban, what a setup by Doncic. Boban is roaming free in the paint right now. Approaching the 5-minute mark. Ooh, long three. Porzingis rattles one home. Oh, how about the passing? Right setup, Porzingis. Luka Doncic, 28 points, 8 rebounds, 7 assists.
Fellas, all I gotta say is real talk. We are still in the first round. These playoffs, more interesting than expected. We have series. We're talking 8-1 matchups, and these are legitimate series here. Stephen A. Smith, Max Kellerman, I'm Molly Karen Rose. Let's get right into it. Dallas handling business. The 21-year-old phenom, Luka Doncic and the Mavs, even the series against that killer Kawhi and the Clippers. Doncic posted impressive numbers, fellas. 28 points, 8 rebounds, 7 assists in just 28 minutes in a 127-114 win over the Clips.
Oh. This series, like I said, when I came here, I'm in way better mood today, and we just got 3 left, and I think we can fight for it.
I just think they're playing well, and honestly, they're playing better than us right now, and we have to pick our play up.
Just goes to show you the West is tough. AFC just beat the first seed yesterday. The West is tough. It's a tough conference. Any given night, any team, especially here, can win. And we full-on seen that. So it's no surprise. What you have to do is come ready to play. And tonight was their night.
Max, it's no secret here. You've been riding with the Clippers since the jump. So I'm really interested to ask you this question. I mean, after what we saw last night, are you a little worried about this team? Bless you, Stephen.
Not a little worried. I'm big time worried about the Clippers' health,
Really?
Stephen A. And they're in real trouble. They're in real trouble because except for the time that Porzingis was ejected in Game 1, and it was a bogus ejection, it's not just that the Mavs were outscoring. The Mavs have been the better team. The Mavs are better than the Clippers through the first 2 games, and it should be 2-0, I think, right now. And I picked the Clippers since the preseason. I haven't gotten off the bandwagon. They are in real trouble, and it's not even so much. Look, they missed Patrick Beverley last night. Paul George did not have a very good or clutch game as he did in Game 1. But I'm not even looking at bad Clippers right now. I'm looking at the Mavs. This is why, Stephen A., I said before these series started, I thought the Clippers had a tougher time in the first round than the Lakers. The Lakers also got outplayed. But because Portland hasn't been playing defense. The Mavs, although they've had defensive struggles at times, and the 2 of the 3 or 4 players that you associate with the team are not defenders in Doncic and Seth Curry. But the Mavericks are a whole lot. When you have Kleba starting next to Porzingis, you have a guy who's 6'10 and a guy who's 7'3. Porzingis, whatever you want to say about his pick-and-roll defense, all this stuff, when he's in the game, you see the level of difficulty. It's on everyone's minds. As they approach the paint, even when they make a shot, you see how much more effort it takes. And then a lot of times they miss just because he's on their minds, even if he's not blocking a shot, and he's a really good shot blocker. But Kleba's an all-around defender. I mean, at 6'10", the dude can guard multiple positions. He grabs the boards, he blocks shots, and like Porzingis, he's a stretch big. He hits the 3. Even Dorian Finney-Smith, also like a defender who can hit the 3. Stephen A., in certain ways, this team reminds me of the Dallas team that won the title, only I think this team has more talent. Like, I just mentioned 3, like Finney-Smith and Kleba, you never even talk about on this team. But they're really good players. When you have guys who can really defend, and that includes shot blocking and everything, and hit the shot from the outside at a good clip, and you have a playmaker like Luka with the ball in his hands, and a big like Porzingis everywhere you look. I didn't even really get into Seth Curry and his shooting ability, which is off the charts. Then you got a guy like Boban coming in off your bench. Whatever you want to say about Boban offensively, if he catches the ball within a certain distance to the basket, good luck. This Mavs team, as I said, was my dark horse before the playoffs began. I believe Porzingis and Doncic will win a title. I thought it would be in the future. I'm telling you, they're live right now. So far through 2 games, they're better than the Clippers.
Molly Kieran Rose, are you listening to this?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. What did I miss here? Molly, correct me if I'm wrong. Isn't a guy by the name of Kawhi Leonard on this team? On this Clippers team?
Mm-hmm.
Is that not the guy that Max Kellerman said is the best player in the world? Just correct me if I'm wrong, Molly. I'm not speaking out of turn.
I think he said, ice in his veins or something
that's
like
right,
that.
ice in his veins. Also, the Clippers, and he's not jumping off the. Hold on, no. Don't speak, Max. Zip it. We listen to with something. So let me get this straight, Max Kellerman, Maximilian Kellerman. Oh, by the way, radio show. When's that radio show again, ESPN Radio? Because I want to make sure, because I'll be listening today because I want to hear your comments today too. 2 o'clock Eastern Time, 2 to 4 p.m. Eastern Time.
2 to 4
on ESPN
Eastern.
Radio.
That's right. Yep.
Okay, congratulations,
Correct.
by the way, again, by the way.
Thank you very much.
Max Kellerman, so let me get this straight. You get to make excuses for the Clippers and how they're in trouble, but none of us get to do that when the Clippers have their team fully intact, but LeBron James is without his primary perimeter defender and Avery Bradley, his primary on-ball defender. Rondo's been out too. According to you, Max, you don't want to hear any excuses for the Lakers, and you already got one for the Clippers after one game. By
Did you just hear what I said?
You said
I said Patrick Beverly was out. That's their perimeter defender, but I'm not making excuses. I'm saying through 2 games, the Mavericks are better than the Clippers.
Listen, it doesn't
No
matter.
excuses?
It's 2 games. It's 2 games. You did say you're not jumping off the bandwagon, but you said I'm very, very, very worried. But when we said that, no excuses. But you get to be worried with excuses. Shut up. Here's the deal. There's nothing to worry about. The Dallas Mavericks can ball. We know it. We know Luka and Porzingis are going to win a championship. You're absolutely right about that. Nobody disagreed with that. We understand they're a dynamic duo. They can do some things, and the better Porzingis gets, we know what they're capable of because Luka's no joke. But I'm not worried about them against the Clippers. I'm not worried about the Clippers, rather, against them. I think Kawhi Leonard, who dropped 35 last night, is going to continue to be Kawhi. I think Paul George will not be this bad as the season progresses, as the series progresses. 4 for 17 shooting, 2 for 10 from three-point range. I do understand that other guys are on the team as well. But this is Kawhi Leonard and Paul George's team. Paul George is a star in this league. Paul George message to PG. You cannot play like this in the playoffs. You can't do it. You just can't. You do it, the Los Angeles Clippers are not going to win the chip. They're not going to even make the Western Conference Finals. And we all predict they're going to make the Western Conference Finals. When we look at Dallas and what they bring to the table, no argument there. Completely agree with you, Max. No biggie. But I'm not surprised by that. Rick Carlisle is an exceptional coach. He handed the ball to Luka Doncic midway through last season. He recognized that it was a huge mistake, like he said, like he told me, to wait as long as he did. He became smarter. Give this kid the damn ball and let him run your team. And in 28 minutes, the brother dropped 28 points. Luka's the real deal. We understand that. But in the end, what it comes down to is this. The Clippers are more talented. They're deeper. They have championship experience. And in the case of PG, he just has to make sure he does his job. PG, Paul George, a star in this league, cannot shoot 4 of 17 from the field, 2 attempts from three-point range, and expect the Clippers to win. It's just that simple.
I got to say this, Stephen A. I think the Mavs, if Porzingis stays healthy, obviously if Doncic stays healthy, they have a championship in their future.
Yeah.
But it may be the very, very, very near future.
No.
Like the right now future.
No.
I'm just saying this. We're in a bubble. Right? The NBA is in a bubble. We knew there were going to be some unusual results in this bubble. Stuff like, wow, remember that bubble year? I'm not making excuses. The Mavericks have an incredibly talented team, and they're playing well together right now. The Clippers have not had really their whole team together all season, basically. They finally got it together immediately. Patrick Beverly is hurt. The Mavericks are firing right now. The timing is right. And when you look at the talent on that team, both sides of the ball, they're scary.
Well, you can talk that all you want to. It amounts to nothing if Luka Doncic is neutralized in some capacity. And the last time I checked, between Paul George, Kawhi Leonard, Patrick Beverly, Morris, there is no excuse for a guy in his second year, as phenomenal as he is, to be running roughshod over you, particularly with the exceptional coaching of a Doc Rivers, a Sam Cassell, a Ty Lue, and others. Figure it out. The fact of the matter is the Dallas Mavericks are a very talented team, but they ain't on the level of the Clippers. I'm sorry. The Clippers should be able to handle their business in this series. And if they don't,
Stephen A., I think
it's an indictment against them.
I think they are. Look, if you said who's the best duo in the bubble, the answer is Porzingis and Luka. So if Porzingis and Luka, at least in the bubble, because that's where they are now, have outplayed every other duo, that includes Kawhi and Paul George, start looking at the supporting cast, particularly without Beverly. In fact, I think the Mavericks have the supporting cast you might want. It's close because they're both deep, excellent teams.
Did you hear me?
What's that?
It amounts to nothing if you neutralize Luka Doncic. It amounts to nothing. Stop him.
But they kind of neutralized him in foul trouble yesterday, and they amounted to something.
The Clippers are the one team that should be able to neutralize Luka Doncic with their defenders. That's what we raved about all year long. If they can't do it,
that's
nobody
why I like
can.
the Clippers.
Yeah.
That's why I like the Clippers, but they should be down 0-2 right now.
Yeah, the unusual get the victory against rival Philly. Boston now has a 2-0 stronghold on this series. Philly, how you feeling?
Where do you go from here?
You make sure you hold the spirit of a locker room. You make sure that the group understands there's enough character and there's enough talent in the room to regroup.
Do you have more to give?
Yes, of course. I mean, it's hard. You know, you gotta play more than 40 minutes. Especially for a big guy, it's hard to do, but that's what I signed up for, and I'm happy to be here. I definitely got one more to give.
Stephen A., obviously Philly doesn't have Ben Simmons, so we know that's a huge issue, but who do you think's most to blame now for this 2-0 hole and Gordon Hayward didn't play last night?
Well, I've said Brett Brown, and I'll continue to say that. I'll leave ownership and management to Max because obviously Jimmy Butler and J.J. Redick are not there. Tobias Harris hasn't stepped up, went stone cold yesterday. Al Horford looks done half the time. We get all of that. Great guy. I take no pleasure in saying that because I love Al Horford. He just seems, Danny Ainge has pulled it off again, Max. He seems to have known when to let go and to move on. We got to look at these executives in Boston and say something about them. Bill Belichick and Danny Ainge really seem to know what the hell they're doing, particularly ahead of everybody else. But the reason why I point the finger at Brett Brown, let's be very clear about this. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to put this in its proper perspective. And please put me on a split screen so I can see Max and Molly when I say this, because I want to use y'all to give an indication of what America is feeling right now. The Philadelphia 76ers were up 25-11 in the first quarter. In the third quarter, something like that, the score was 80-44 in favor of Boston. That is a 69-19 run. The Philadelphia 76ers got outscored by 50. 50.
That's bad.
There's nothing to talk about Brett Brown anymore. He is in a world of trouble. I mean, this could be it. They could get swept. And last night, when I saw Joel Embiid, or yesterday rather, with his head in his hands, I said, this picture right here, if this series ends with him looking like that, Brett Brown is done, and he's probably done anyway. Outscored by 50. I don't care if Ben Simmons is not there. You watch them. They couldn't get into, they were passing the ball, y'all, and literally nobody wanted to shoot. And when they were forced to shoot, they would shoot off-balance, fadeaway shots. Just watch the game. Joel Embiid had absolutely no help whatsoever. This Shake Milton experiment, that hasn't worked out. The Thibault experiment, that hasn't worked out. Al Horford's not working out. Tobias Harris and $180 million. They were supposed to be ready for this. They ain't ready. And so it just looks so bad right now. And a bunch of great guys on that team. If you know Al Horford, class personified, we all love Tobias Harris. We get all of that. These are great guys. But this is not about their character. This is about their game. And their game seems to be non-existent. They get out to a start. Brad Stevens, Max, he did it 2 years ago. Here he is again. The Sixers came out strong. Brad Stevens makes an adjustment. Brett Brown seems ill-equipped to handle it, has no answer. And as a result, the Philadelphia 76ers literally get blown out. And then when you take into account the season in its totality, the Sixers were absolute monsters at home at the Wells Fargo Center. And then they stepped away from it, and they weren't even a 250 club, 25%. I mean, listen, they were like 10 and 24 away from Philadelphia. Unbeatable at home, damn near winless on the road. This is coaching. And I'm telling you something right now. There's no way that this can continue. It was an embarrassment. It was a disgrace. It was bad. And Brett Brown, another classy guy. I'm not questioning his knowledge of X's and O's. I'm saying whatever the pulse of your team is, what it takes to really touch it and appeal from them maximum whatever they have, he seems incapable of doing it. I think the Sixers are on the verge of getting swept. And if that happens, I believe that Brett Brown will be fired as head coach of the Philadelphia 76ers. And I think it can be coming in a matter of days.
The answer as to who's most to blame for the mess of the Philadelphia 76ers right now, the predicament they're in, is Josh Harris, the owner. He is most to blame. I was going to go with Elton Brand originally, but it's not even fair to Elton Brand. It's Josh Harris, the owner. First, before I tell you a little story, what kind of franchise do you want to root for in the NBA? If you could just pick, I wish I was this kind of NBA fan. You'd like to be the fan of a team in a desirable market, say Silicon Valley, right? San Francisco area, Bay Area. There's a desirable market. There's a lot of money there. Players like the idea of playing there. You'd like to have a smart people in place running the show who can identify talent in the draft and develop it well. So Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, these were not, these aren't 1, 2, or 3 picks. You're in the lottery, but you're not picking, you're picking a little bit further down. And then you identify a guy in the second round like Draymond Green, and through coaching him up and through identifying the talent, you got a really good nucleus. And then you become desirable for top free agents like Kevin Durant, okay? Or you make trades like for Andre Iguodala. That's the best kind of franchise to root for. Under that, what would you like? Well, if you have a location like Miami and a guy like Pat Riley, and you clear cap space, and you can get a whole bunch of free agents who are amazing to sign there, that's a pretty quick fix, and immediately you're a powerhouse, as the Heat did with LeBron and Wade and Bosh, obviously. What other kind of franchise? The Spurs. You're not considered a desirable market. Like, people aren't clamoring to go there damn year. You get a little lucky sometimes. Robinson gets hurt, and then you get the #1 pick, you get Duncan, and then Robinson comes back. But you also draft later on in the draft, identify guys, trade for guys before the draft, right after the draft, Kawhi and Ginobili and Parker, and compete year in and year out. Stephen A., barring those 3 kinds, which I agree, it's the best way to do it. How else might you want your franchise to proceed? Well, if you're not a market that's attracting free agents, and if you don't believe in your ability to identify guys later in the draft, as a result, you're not the most brilliant team or best basketball people, what do? Well, if you tank, not for a year, but multiple years, you'll get so many shots at the draft lottery that you're liable to get at least one, maybe multiple generational type or franchise-changing talents. That's what Philadelphia did. Sam Hinkie came in and said, let's play the odds. I'm not saying it's the best way to do it. It ain't the worst either. And tank for multiple seasons. So what happened?
The process. Is that what you're doing? Is that what you're doing? You're applauding the process?
That's right. What happened? It's not that the process wasn't working. The process was working, and that scared the NBA. Adam Silver can't have a league where teams start copycatting that and for years don't try to be competitive. It's bad for the league. Steps in, makes them switch their GM, right? What do? They bring in Brian Colangelo. I said that was a disastrous pick at the time. He's awful. He did, and it was awful. It was worse than you could imagine. And when they removed Colangelo, did they just bring in another GM? No, they brought in a GM in Elton Brand who was forced to keep some of Colangelo's staff. It is a schizophrenic organization as a result of that. And they have a mismatched roster because they don't have a cohesive, smart, forward-looking front office. It's a hodgepodge of leftovers and a new guy. None of them seem to know quite what they're doing. And that's why you have these weird misfitting pieces on this team around 2 generational talents, Embiid and Simmons, who are there because of Hinkie's process. The most to blame is Josh Harris, who botched The firing of Hinkie and the
Okay.
hiring of the next guy.
Okay, we only got a minute left. Let me chime in here. First of all, I told you about bringing up the process. Don't make me throw some water on you through the screen. I told you about that damn process. When a black man has the license to lose on purpose, spanning years, then come to me supporting the process. But if you want to talk about, particularly in this day and age, what's discriminating, what privileges that are allowed to one section of the population but not another, that's a prime example of it. There is no black man that can lose on purpose for years.
No white man either, apparently.
It cannot happen. And so let me tell you something right now. I want to hear no damn thing about the process. You got Embiid, you got Ben Simmons, you had
Hinkie
enough
didn't
talent.
keep his job.
Now, Jimmy Butler walked away because he wanted to go to South Beach. They didn't get outbid or anything like that. He wanted to leave. In the case of J.J. Redick, playoff experience, veteran leadership, three-point shooting. That's somebody you should not have lost because he wouldn't have had a problem shooting jump shots last night, but you let him walk away in the first day of free agency for a $26.5 million contract over 2 years. You should have paid him that, all right? But you gave the money to Tobias Harris. You lose Butler and, of course, J.J. Redick. In the end, what it comes down to more than anything else is that it's not about the Sixers coming up short or losing. It's how they're going down. And to go down like this, to be so porous on the road, to struggle the way that they have, you have enough talent to look better than this. There's plenty of coaches out there, Max, and you know this. If they were coaching the same talent, they would look better. And you know that.
They don't have enough shooting.
Yep.
The Sixers don't have enough shooting right now. I mean,
They
don't
got
have it,
defense.
period, but
You know
they
what?
don't
You
have
can
shooting.
lose. You can lose ugly.
Yep, they do.
You can lose ugly.
Gentlemen.
Not like this.
Real quick, one thing I want to say, I know you're on the opposite sides as far as the process, and Stephen A., I know you think a coaching change will happen, but this really begs the question for us at another day. I kept thinking this as you guys were discussing it. Is it time to just implode this whole team?
Nope.
I get that it's injuries, but when we're talking the two superstars, Simmons and Embiid, can they really do it? They gave away a lot of talent. I think we need to discuss that at a later date.
Molly,
because
several coaches
it's clearly
will want
not
this job.
working. This is their fourth. This is, I think, Embiid's fourth playoffs. I mean, when we're talking
Several
about that
coaches,
talent.
Molly. Several coaches.
Alpha dogs in the NBA and Damian Lillard and LeBron James. LeBron spin. LeBron with a finish. Woo. Wow. Lakers have a chance to take the lead now. Down a point. Nice find by LeBron. Lillard, long three is up and in. Damian Lillard. Dame time, says Nurkic.
You know why? They don't have many three-point shooters. Like that! Like that!
Nurkic back on the floor. Give it to Carmelo Anthony for three. He's got it. Carmelo Anthony. With all of that action, Nurkic hammers one home. Portland Trailblazers, a 7-point victory over the Lakers in Game 1.
Look who's here, TNT's own Kenny the Jet Smith. And I like that setup back there. It looks pretty, like you're out on a patio or something. Kind of jealous. Kenny, so...
I wouldn't want to be outside. I needed to be outside. And before you even start, I want to say I'm happy to see you're here and back because you're the only host, I think, that can control those two guys, Molly. So I'm happy to see you there.
I appreciate that, Kenny. And that's a sweet setup right there. I saw that bar behind you. You're living right. All right, let's get to it, though. We're going to talk some hoops. I also want to hear about this Jet Academy later as well. So I'll ask you about that. But I got to start with the Lakers. Tell me this. This is a must-win game, right? I mean, they can't go down 2-0.
Oh, no, I think that every game is must for the Lakers because what the Portland Trailblazers do, is, I'm sure Max and Steve have been killing on, is, this is going to happen every day. They're the best scoring basketball team in the NBA. And I said this the other day. You think about this. Their fourth best scorer is arguably the second best scorer in the modern era in Carmelo Anthony. So they score the ball so easily. And that's the one thing the Lakers don't do. So how does the Lakers have to combat that? They have to figure out a way to get more possessions by offensive rebounding and making them turn the basketball over. And if they don't do those two things, there's another win for the Portland Trailblazers. They either have to have great offensive rebounds or make them have great turnovers. Because if they both shoot 90 shots in a game, Portland wins easily.
Kenny, do you believe that the Los Angeles Lakers can win this series if they can't hit threes? Because this offense that I'm looking at from Portland, even though, of course, you can get offensive rebounds, you can get more possessions. Obviously, you can score in the lane, in the paint. That's going to help you significantly. But to me, the way Portland is shooting the ball, when you could have 4 shooters on the court at the same time, in Dame, CJ, Melo, and Gary Trent, I'm just of the mindset, the belief, Kenny, that the Los Angeles Lakers, in order to win this series, are going to have to find their stroke from long range in order to win this series.
I think some of that is true. Maybe we'll see a J.R. Smith sighting and a Dion Waiters sighting, which we didn't see in Game 1.
Right.
But they can't have more possession. They have to have more possessions, Stephen. Like, if you and I take 90 shots and I'm a better shooter, Nurkic and Dame and CJ and Carmelo, I'm going to win the game. So I got to combat that. I got to make you turn the basketball over. I got to put pressure on you. Or I got an offensive rebound like Memphis did and Brooklyn did against them to, kind of make those games kind of tough. If you're Anthony Davis, if he has 7 to 9 offensive rebounds, I'm going to go, oh, the Lakers probably won this game. But if they don't have that, I'm going, oh, they lost. I don't even have to watch the game. I'm watching it because I want to see Dame put on a show. But other than that, I know who's going to win based on what's happening.
Kenny, you're the reasonable one on your show. Favorite show. But let me ask you this. Try and talk me off this ledge, okay? I look at the Mavericks. I see Doncic, MVP caliber player. I see Porzingis ascending from where he was before he got hurt at this point, right? I think he has a future MVP in his, if he can stay healthy. I look at the supporting cast, and we talk about Seth Curry's, shot, which is ridiculous, or Tim Hardaway Jr. even is an above-average two-guard, I think, at this point. The way he's shooting it and the things he can do. Not to mention someone like Kleba, who's 6'10", can block shots, play defense, switch, and also bomb from 3. Finney Smith, who can defend and bomb from 3. What am I missing? Why couldn't the Mavericks go all the way in the bubble this season?
I'm going to say something, Max, to you that you very rarely hear on this show. I agree with you, brother. Very rare. So I would say this, is that if you look at the 3.5 months that everyone has off, I look at that as a new season. So we're not looking at Luka and Porzingis coming back from the 2020 season. We're looking at them in their ascending of the next year. And that's what we're seeing. We're seeing the MVP caliber. We're not seeing the all-star Luka. We're seeing the MVP Luka. We're not seeing the injured Porzingis. We're seeing the Porzingis who's now an all-star again. So everyone's ascending to where they were. And I think that's why it gives, I said it last night before the game. I'm like, you know what? The Clippers are just in the same amount of danger as the Lakers, because now that 3.5 months off, these are different basketball teams that are coming back and now playing in a bubble environment where they don't have to go to Staples Center and win game 2, 3, or 4, or 5. There's no anxiety. It's a different environment.
What about the Houston Rockets? Are we underselling them? We've been talking about the Lakers. We've been talking about the Clippers. Obviously, we see Luka and the kind of damage that he's capable of wreaking, along with Porzingis on the court with him. But James Harden, without Russell Westbrook, not only drops 27, that's nothing new, but had 11 assists, had the ball moving. Obviously, they hit about 23 pointers against OKC. Your thoughts about Houston, particularly if and when Russell Westbrook comes back?
It all depends on Russell, because, as great as they played, Russell Westbrook can fall asleep and get 22 points. Jeff Green, great as a player as he played the other night, that was a great game for him. And to expect guys to have great games every night is difficult. So for me, it all depends on how healthy Russell is, because they're going to need somebody who can fall asleep and get 22 points and not have a great game to get 22 points. And that's going to help them get to that next level. Otherwise, I don't think they can get out without him being healthy.
Kenny, switching to the East, I look at the Bucks and I look at the Freak, and they're doing the same thing, at least in Game 1, with a much less talented team, obviously, than Toronto last year, that they, walling up against the Freak. Someone else is going to have to find his own shot, right? That's not Middleton, who's not exactly that kind of player. Bledsoe has been unable to do it consistently in the playoffs. I've floated the idea, maybe that guy is DiVincenzo, who in the tournament had the guts to do it. who's not a great shooter or ball handler, but maybe good enough and is a good defensive player. When you look at the Bucks, what's the answer to what they're doing to the Freak defensively?
The answer to what they're doing is at times you got to take the Freak off the ball. Like, he's too easy to see if, you know, when he has the ball in his hand. What made Magic Johnson great at that, or what makes LeBron great, is when he had Kyrie Irving, Dwayne Wade. So you had to pay attention to other areas of the floor, guys who can do things with the basketball and not just spot shooters. So when you have him on the ball, you could double him easier, or you could build that wall. I think at times they have to put him at the baseline. I think times they have to put him on the wings, so you can't find him so easily in the offense if you're the help defender. Like, if I'm watching that, when I'm watching that game, I'm like, everyone on that team has an easy job of finding him. They have to make it more difficult to find him when he doesn't have the ball, and when he gets it, he's in areas of the floor that's harder to help. And I think just having him coming straight down at you is too easy.
Kenny, you know we're all loyal viewers of your show. We absolutely love it. But we got to show this video because it was so great. And tell me this, what was going through your mind when Chuck busted out that broom?
Well, the first thing I thought of was him getting swept by the Philadelphia 76ers, by the New York Knicks when he got swept. That was the first image in my mind because they were the only team that actually did that, like pulled the broom out on the floor. I think it was Oakley and Mark Jackson and Johnny Newman and those guys. So that was the first thing that went through my mind. But he kept saying, he kept reaching under his desk because I was like, what the hell is he doing? He's always doing something stupid.
Yeah.
And he's like, I got a prop. And he pulls it out. But I don't think it's a sweep, but there's clear and present danger in Los Angeles. Danger, Will Robertson. Danger. Yep. It's here without question.
Kenny, let me transition because it's a subject that I know is near and dear to your heart, and I'd be remiss in not neglecting to bring it up. You've got an academy. I want you to talk to everybody about that. Talk to America about that, what you're doing with your academy, because I think everybody out there needs to know. Tell us about the Jet Academy. Tell us what you're doing.
Excited about it, guys, because, you know, with the social distancing and the pandemic, no one can really do anything. And I got my kids there. They're doing homeschool. And this is a way I enlisted Kemba Walker, Trae Young, Victor Oladipo, Breanna Stewart, Brittany Griner, and I got another list of NBA players coming out. And it's just a virtual basketball academy, a membership only. You come in and you get access to live, direct tutelage. And you can upload videos, you could ask questions, and it works on any device, anywhere. All you need is Wi-Fi or cell service, and you get it. This week, and then I started sprinkling things in now, Stephen, like how to get a scholarship. Because people think the only way we have a session teach you how to get a scholarship, the only way you can get it is playing travel ball. Then I got the guys who are training the best players in the world. You know, the Kevin Durant and the James Harden in the world. They come on. They're going to show you what they do. And again, it's jetacademycamp.com. And this is the new way. I would be in the studio if this wasn't the COVID. I would be in there. You guys would be together, and I'd be coming in. So this is the way. This is the new normal. This is the way we consume information. And I know parents are like, this homeschool, I need my kids to be active. What am I going to do? Go to jetacademycamp.com, and we got them for an hour and a half. I'm only going to babysit for an hour and a half.
Well, impeccable timing because we know kids really are missing that engagement. Yep, that's what it is, jetacademycamp.com. And I checked out the website. Whoever did it did a great job, really user-friendly. And props to you on getting this started. Kenny, always good to see you. We appreciate you. The frames are fresh, and we'll be watching you on TV. The Magic tonight as they try to avoid going 0-2 after Tuesday's double-digit upset. The Magic kept Giannis to 0 field goals in the last 11 minutes. The top-seeded Bucks have struggled in the bubble, going 3-5 in the seeding games. Look who's joining us now, Chiney Ogwumike. What's going on, Chiney? So good to see you. And I want to remind everybody that you have a new radio show with Mike Golic Jr. Yes, good to see you.
I'm her lead-in, Molly.
I know. How'd she get so lucky that she got Max Kellerman, the Max Kellerman Show, 2 to 4 Eastern, before her show with Mike Golic Jr., 4 to 7 Eastern. I love the new lineup. ESPN's doing big things.
So do I.
All right, let me get to the debate topic here, though. Stephen A., you're up. What's on the line if the Bucks don't make the finals in a wide-open East with a lot of injuries?
Potentially the Greek Freak having a future in Milwaukee. Remember that after this season, he's approaching the last year of his contract. And when you have a talent such as him, you're going to be stuck in a quandary if you're the Milwaukee Bucks. On one hand, you obviously want to sign him, give him the max. He's the face of the franchise. He's a league MVP, probably a reigning two-time league MVP, and all of this other stuff. This guy's phenomenal. And so because of that, you want him to stay. But if he gives you any indication that he's A, either non-committal, or B, that he plans on leaving, you got a decision to make. Do you sit up there, keep him on board, ride the wave, roll the dice, and do everything that you can to make sure that you keep him in Milwaukee? Or do you look at the obvious tradable asset that he is, where practically every team in the NBA would be trying to kick down your door to see what they could offer you in exchange for his services and go from there? If you're the Milwaukee Bucks, that's the kind of situation that you may find yourself in if this team loses, particularly if they get bounced out early, because you're able to look at the rest of the squad. All of a sudden, you've been raving about Eric Bledsoe and Brooks Lopez and Chris Middleton and Wes Matthews and Dante, DiVincenzo. What is I keep forgetting his name. I always correct.
DiVincenzo.
DiVincenzo. That's right, for Villanova.
DiVincenzo.
Played ball Final Four, balled out the whole bit when they won the national title. Villanova. Love that guy. But here's the deal. In the end, what you've got to look at is it's about the Greek Freak, and you don't know if the Greek Freak is going to reach a point where he's saying, all right, enough of this, I might need. If I got an opportunity, say, for example, to end up in Golden State, playing with Steph and Clay, marksman, where I get to do what I want to do, and you can never double up on me because those two brothers are on a wing somewhere, shooting jumpers all over the place. That might be an attractive scenario for him. You just never know, just using that as an example. So it's going to really put them in a pinch. I think the only definitive way the Milwaukee Bucks can assure themselves of keeping the Greek Freak is if they win the chip. He has come from very humbled beginnings. We saw a phenomenal story about him and his upbringing in Greece and what he's had to endure. So he can deal with any kind of situation after that. Milwaukee certainly is a significantly better situation for him than this kind of environment that he grew up in. But it doesn't mean it's the best environment compared to other potential landing spots in the NBA if Milwaukee doesn't win. That is what potentially is on the line for them, and I think they got to pay attention to that.
I think you're right. That's the biggest thing on the line for anyone is the Greek Freak's future in Milwaukee. And the reason I went from on here and on the radio, on the Max Kellerman Show, 2 to 4 p.m. Eastern on ESPN Radio, ESPN News 2, Stephen A., as you know.
That's right.
The reason I went from talking a lot of Bledsoe to talking a lot of DiVincenzo on the air is because he needs help. The Freak needs help. And if you're Middleton, you're a good all-star, but not the kind of go-get-your-own-shot kind of star in crunch time, that a playmaker guy when you can take the Freak off the ball that you really need. So you need someone else to step up. And Bledsoe has the talent, but he's not a great shooter, and he's been unable to do it in the playoffs consistently. So I look at DiVincenzo, who was the best player on the floor when they won the national title, scored a lot, he's an excellent defender, who handles it and shoots it just well enough maybe to be that guy to really help the Freak out and Middleton out, assuming Middleton can get his game up when they need him. But I think what's on the line for the Freak, Stephen A., if they lose, is his position in the kind of constellation of NBA stars. It wasn't long ago where I was thinking, if this dude gets his shot a little better from the outside and improves his handles by a little bit, he could go down as the greatest player of all time. Like if he shot 33, 34% from three, and he was handling a little better, because he handles it well for a big, but he doesn't handle it well, period, right? Who's better than him? He's like, then he could get it done in the playoffs, and then he starts racking up chips at 7 feet tall, doing all that stuff. He starts to challenge Jordan the way he takes it hard to the hole and the way he plays defense. But that hasn't happened because he's been stopped in the playoffs. And given it may be, although he is getting better as a three-point shooter, he's shooting over 30% now and taking under 2 shots a game, but more than a 3 a game, which he hasn't done in the past. If that trend continues, that's all well and good. But Stephen A., this just may be who he's going to be. He may already be there, a great player who really is more of a big than anything, and you need to get him help, right? But if he keeps getting stopped in the playoffs, that will be his reputation, and he will settle down below LeBron and KD and Kawhi and the guys who you don't need that crime partner who can handle from, who, you know, which is a little harder to find nowadays. So I think that's what's on the line for the Freak.
Max, Giannis's game has already had us put respect on his name. Giannis Ugo Antetokounmpo. I'm going to say his full name because Nigel know to carry last. But Giannis is a generational talent. You mentioned it. And when it comes to those type of impactful players, we have to start realizing that loyalty and legacy are two completely different things. No matter how loyal a player is, legacy usually wins, right? Because we define players' careers largely by championships. So that's what's at stake, legacy. And also as athletes, we judge ourselves by our legacy, how we have impacted the game. Now, when you're a two-time MVP, which he's likely to be, and also have a Coach of the Year, the pressure to deliver a championship will continue to increase, especially when there's no Kawhi or LeBron in your conference. Now, we all know that Giannis brings not only dominance, but also joy to Milwaukee. He seems at home. His brother is there. He and his wife just welcomed a beautiful boy. In Milwaukee, there are no distractions. Let's be real. Now, this is why we saw him go from MIP, Most Improved Player, to MVP. And his team is also leveling up with him. We talked Chris Middleton, Stephen A. listed them all. Like, these guys are all trying to level up their game, but this, in reality, is his 7th season in the NBA, and that's around when players start, like, you know, in their prime, start getting that championship itch, and their patience is tested, and the pressure keeps rising. And you guys mentioned it, Giannis is a humble guy with humble beginnings, but not when he steps on the court. When he's hooping, he's a monster. 30 points, 14 rebounds, 6 assists, yeah, in less minutes than last year. So I've always told people, when you have a top player, your teammates are the ones auditioning for you to stay at home. If there's no team success for the Bucks again, the voices around the league in Giannis's ear will continue to get louder and louder. And that's where we see legacy start edging out loyalty.
Well, if you want to talk about your teammates basically, you know, recruiting you to stay and what have you, just paraphrasing you there. Well, you know what? You could not have picked more of an appropriate moment to bring that up, because when I watched Chris Middleton perform in Game 1 against New Orleans, and I've watched him perform in the bubble, he hasn't been that impressive, and he certainly wasn't impressive in Game 1 with 14 points. I'm sorry, do you realize that Chris Middleton is getting paid more than the Greek Freak right now? He's getting paid $30 million. Goes up to 33, 35, 37. Got a player option 5 years from now at $40 million. Overall, it's $177 million, or more than that, a little bit more than $177 million in Milwaukee. So understand, they recognize that unless the draft takes place and you luck up in that fashion, or you're able to pull off a heist during a trade, that's the only way you're going to build this team, because you're not going to get any marquee free agent to come, which means that Chris Middleton, that supplementary piece to Giannis Antetokounmpo, you got to show up. And you don't have to be a superstar, but you need to be that all-star that you are. You need to be that reliable dude that can give me about 25, 30. And if he ain't doing that, that's more of a reason for Giannis to want to get the hell up out of there.
I totally agree with that point also, because the gravity of your second best player, especially when your best player is not a shooter, is going to affect the shooting of the rest of the team. When you look at the Mavericks right now, they have to deal with Luka and Porzingis. So everyone is a shooter. Like, however much they shoot, they shoot. Seth Curry's a shooter anyway. But, you know, I brought up Hardaway Jr. or Kleba, and everyone's bombing from long range. When you look at the Bucks this year, Lopez had an off year shooting, especially compared to last year from long range. Bledsoe's not a shooter. DiVincenzo's not really a shooter. And that is going to get worse, not better, if Middleton is not like a gravitational force, because he's not hitting shots. He's got to be bigger than he's been.
And Giannis could be staring a supermax contract right in his face soon, and so I think the pressure is on. But more so, I love it when I come on here and both of you guys agree after I talk. Like, I just feel like a peacemaker, you know, brokering peace.
Right?
I love it.
That's what comes with being a radio host.
That's not the point of this show.
Janae, I'll
You're
leave
like
you
the
with
referee
this.
who would. You're like the referee.
Stephen A., before I get to you, I just want to give this a bit of context. So we highlighted the fact that he's been 27 years in the business. Obviously, when he made this horrific slur, he did not realize it was going out to the national airwaves. But I will say this. He did have a mic on, and he was comfortable using that terminology in front of his colleagues at his workplace. And that's what I find most alarming. And I'd like to comment on one other piece. When he refers to it as being a man of faith, faith is to love all. So I just wanted to highlight those two things before we get your take here, Stephen A.
Well, first of all, let's understand a couple of things. And I appreciate that context, Molly. He deserved to be suspended. He deserved to be taken off the air immediately. But I do not believe that he deserves to be fired. I think people make mistakes. I thought that his apology was sincere, off the cuff, the level of contrition that one would expect when somebody makes such an egregious mistake. And I'm not even sure the word, I don't know the man at all. I'm not sure the word mistake is appropriate, but I will tell you this. I know many people in this business that have known him for many, many years. And he is right about what he alluded to, that there are an abundance of people who know him that find him to be a very, very good man and a very decent human being. Again, I don't know him at all. But having said all of that, we have to take into account the culture that we're living in. And it's not about, let he who hasn't sinned cast the first stone or something along those lines. But it is about the fact that none of us are flawless. Imperfections touch all of our lives. We make mistakes. We mess up. And this notion that one mistake should cost you a career that spans over 3 decades, I just find I find it very difficult to do something like that. Again, I do not know this man personally. I do think that such an error in judgment, such slippage of the tongue, such words emanating out of his mouth definitely were offensive. And obviously, he should have been taken off the air immediately. I think that was the right decision. I do think it's right to keep him off the air for a little while. I think that's the right decision. I think it's right for him to be suspended. But being suspended and having attention brought to your error in judgment, your mistake, or whatever you want to call it, is one thing. But to lose your career because of it is an entirely different matter altogether. And I'm just one of those people. Black, you're white, Latino, Native American, Jewish, Gentile, Protestant, it doesn't matter. You could be rich, you could be poor. You could be gay, you can be straight, no matter what transgender, there is no human being alive that doesn't make mistakes. He made a big one, and I get that. But your body of work, the sensitivity that you've shown throughout the year, the excellence that you've put forth and you've disseminated, that should count for something. And I do believe that even though he should suffer some consequences, he should pay a price, meaning a suspension. I do not believe he should lose his job. And I definitely appreciated his apology. It wasn't written, it wasn't orchestrated or planned. It was immediate in the moment. Once he recognized the error that he made, he stood before us all. He looked into that camera. He articulated an appropriate level of contrition as far as I'm concerned, even though I'm not the offended party, and I understand that. But even if he had used the N-word, as egregious as I would have found that and as offensive as I would have found that, if he had apologized in such a way, I still would not be an advocate of him being fired. I would be an advocate of him being suspended. And I think that's appropriate here.
I don't love cancel culture either, Stephen A., and he has been suspended. I will say here the same thing that I said in the Riley Cooper situation when he offended African Americans with the biggest slur in the English language.
Yep.
With Deshaun Jackson when he posted an anti-Semitic piece on his social media, and anyone who makes a mistake like that. I want to know more. The apology is necessary at first. It's impossible to divine what's in someone's heart, right? How do you do that? it's not about like finding out in your behind closed doors in your personal life. How do you really feel? It's usually not about that. But what he did was use that word in the workplace, whether or not he thought the mic was on. So there are kind of different repercussions here. He was correctly suspended, obviously. He seemed to me to give us a sincere apology. I think that when he asks for mercy, people have to ask themselves, those who are offended, and I don't think you need to be gay to be offended, people have to ask themselves, is that how you feel? Or do you think there should be further repercussions based on his use of that word, which seemed to trip off his tongue, right? And he said with special emphasis. But he did give, to me, what seemed like a sincere and thoughtful apology. Like Deshaun Jackson, like Riley Cooper, I would like to know a little more. Not even so much to know what's really in his heart about the subject, but to see if he understands really the mistake that was made. Riley Cooper seemed to convince his teammates that he did. Even his parents came out and said, we're ashamed of this, you know, and I think he was, whether or not it was forgotten, he was forgiven. Deshaun Jackson, same thing. When I said I wanted to know more, immediately made himself aware of the issue, and I think got into people's good graces relatively quickly. And here I think is the same thing. He used a slur against a group of people who have been persecuted throughout history. He did it in the workplace. He was caught doing it. He has been suspended. What happens now when he asks for people's kind of grace and forgiveness, I think depends on the little bit more we get to know, whether he really understands the issue and the mistake that was made. And then in my view, Stephen A., I agree with you. At that point, I'm against cancel culture. I'm pro-cancel culture if it's someone you're talking about who has a pattern, who's a recidivist liar, cheater, who's corrupt, who's racist, etc. And it's a continual, it's an ongoing pattern. Then at a certain point, you can cancel them, not for one mistake for which the person apologizes, provided that I'm satisfied and that people understands the error.
The one thing I want to make sure that I make people aware that I'm consistent on this. I'm 52 years old. Okay, when Riley Cooper made his mistake and he apologized, you know what? I didn't take it to be as sincere as he tried to come across, but I still wasn't an advocate of him being fired. When Jimmy the Greek got exposed, I pointed out that he was in a bar, clearly inebriated, and a camera was stuck into his face, and I took that into consideration, and I didn't feel like he needed to lose his career over such a thing. Al Campanis might have been a little bit different because Ted Koppel, who was hosting Nightline at the time, gave the man one opportunity after another, and he just messed up. When Rush Limbaugh said what he said on ESPN's NFL Countdown about Donovan McNabb and the media being desirous that a black quarterback do well, I didn't feel he deserved to be fired over that. It was when he was alerted.
I agree with that too, Stephen A.
It was when he was alerted to the sensitivity of the situation and then came across like he didn't give a damn. That's when I said he had to go. So my point is that if you apologize and you show contrition and the heightened level of sensitivity is there because you recognize that you have offended and hurt another group of people and you appropriately apologize for that, I am prone to give you another chance. And I certainly think that in the case of Tom Brennaman, he is somebody that deserves another opportunity to continue his career. He shouldn't lose his career over this.
Yeah. I echo that we're all flawed, and I also believe in second chances, but I do think there is a level of privilege to be able to spew that hate at the workplace and feel comfortable in front of your coworkers and employees. Putting that out into the atmosphere. I also want to encourage everyone.
Molly,
Keyshawn
quickly,
Johnson was very strong on this earlier on his new show with Jay Will and Zubin Mehenti. The video's up on that story. I would encourage everyone to watch that. Yeah, go ahead, Max.
Stephen A., I forgot how you put it around the Deshaun Jackson controversy. but it was something along the lines of using it as a teaching moment. You said not cancel culture, but some. What do you recall what it was?
Council culture. Don Lemon always says that.
Council culture.
Right.
I like that idea. Not cancel, but counsel. If it's recidivist behavior and the person doesn't get it, that's another story. But council culture is a good way to put it, I think.
Right.
Yeah, maybe he can spend some time with the LGBTQ community and get educated there. All right, we will leave it on that note. Thanks for the conversation, gentlemen. When we come back here on First Take, some NBA to dive into. Can the Lakers redeem themselves tonight? TNT's Kenny Smith will tell us after this quick break.